You said you would start.
I said I would. Hey, let's start with a mistake.
Johnson, you just said you would start today. Come on. Have you hugged? Let's ask the question. Since our last episode, have you hugged a tree today?
I am
perhaps what is missing. It's you need to go and hug a tree.
I've been hugging trees for ages now. Every morning we go out and we hug a tree before breakfast.
That's brilliant.
We are perfectly grounded in nature.
Yes, I know that here. I mean, there's a lot of these trees here. They're beautiful trees. We're in nature today.
And today, folks, we are presenting you with not just hugging a tree, but the tree showers us with blessings as well.
It's showering.
It's not raining, it's blue sky, but we're getting showered with green.
That's good. So that's beautiful.
Today's episode is continuing on with the series of resilience, and we're looking today at the resilient mind. So Andy's going to just tell me what do you think when we talk about the resilient mind? What comes?
I think it is a great topic, and mind or mindset. I mean, we have read similar books, we have read different books. You come from a strongly scientific background, I come from a philosophical one, and grounded in my own pursuit of a mindset of knowing thyself, type of, I have even tattoo on my back, know thyself. But it's important, the agnostic element to knowing who you are and your mind, your mindset, your thoughts. So I'm grounded in stoicism for my own pursuit. And you come from your own background, but we read similar books. I think, first of all, this is a topic that we could go on forever. So today we're going to focus on the resilient mindset.
Correct.
And what it means to resilient. But we could be recording 1,000, 2,000 episodes here, and we never ended our pursuit for what is the mindset, what is the mind and how the mind works, etc., etc.
As long as you say we're going to stop before I get hungry, you can go for as long as you want.
No, we have to stick to it. But for me, it's the most exciting and the most topic because it connects with everything we are as a human being. I remember going back to 2006 when I read a piece on I think it was called The Illusion of Explanatory Depth. And that goes back to, we think we understand something, we try to explain, but if we keep going, keep pushing, we know that we know very little. And if there is a topic that we know still very little in comparison to what is to know, is how the mind works and mindset. But I know there are a lot of people pushing the boundaries out there, and I think one book that we both read from Carol Dweck on mindset, on growth mindset. And this is where probably the angle that we want to take today. Well, we are going through COVID. We don't know if it's a pandemic or a pandemonium, but there's a lot of confusion, misinformation, a lot of stress, level of stress going up, cortisol goes up. People try to do something about. The numbers are out there in terms of violence at home, people losing their jobs, all that, in that confusion, and we don't know the future. And something that you always say is about resilience, something that it moves us to the future. We need to be resilient for something that is still to come, right? Correct.
So whatever situation.
So we don't know today. So the episode today is looking at the resilient mindset, because we know we need to have one in order to move forward. Correct?
Yeah. So if we just back off a second from the crisis situation, because we're looking, saying, well, how do you actually train your mind? What attitudes you have to have in order to be more resilient? And it's like, I think somebody said to me once, you don't learn to swim by throwing somebody in the middle of the Atlantic. You chuck them in the swimming pool first for a few minutes, preferably on the shallow end if they're short like me, and then you gradually get out. And I think that's the way we should be approaching.
Absolutely. From that perspective, I mean, I come from martial arts background, and also I like the training, the resilience that, and the discipline that creates, and the mindset that it creates when you start training and seeking that discipline. There is a motto that is always there with me from the Spartan warriors: more sweat in training, less blood in battle. So you have to keep practicing that mindset of it. It's not something that suddenly you develop.
No, it doesn't happen overnight. That overnight success thing doesn't work. That's Hollywood in its... Yeah, it's a Hollywood fallacy.
And now a social media thing, right?
Now a social media...
Good thing that we're not influencers, Johnson.
That's why I'm not an influencer.
Never.
I don't want to influence.
God forbid, never. No.
So, how do you think... Or do you think that somebody who starts from point A, saying, well, I have terrible upbringing, etc., etc., I have low self-esteem, and if somebody walks through this process, you get to the end and you say, here you are, I have now a degree in resilience. Does that work?
In my own experience, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't happen like that. It's a choice that you make every day, and understanding who you are and developing from within you, and addressing some self-limiting beliefs and asking the question, why did I do that? Why can it be different? You know, and also I think it's surrounding you with positive people is very important too. People that are going to push you a little bit further. Not all people that are going to confirm what you do, but sometimes challenge what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, and say, rethink that. So I like that. And also looking at the obstacles, because the obstacles are an important part of developing that. You know, what Marcus already says, the action or the impediment of action becomes the fact, the action itself. The obstacles in the way becomes the way that you're going to, you know, use that to propel you, use that to move beyond.
That for me kind of ties in, you know, you mentioned Carol Dweck here, on her book on growth mind. She talks about growth mindsets versus static mindset. So I think if you say, well, if your mind is fixed, it's immovable in terms of, can I improve my ability to do X, Y, and Z, then obstacles, if you have a growth mindset, she would say obstacles you would see as the challenges as positive. Whereas if you think I have a fixed mindset, then an obstacle is something to be avoided totally. Why would I want to push myself out into somewhere where I'm totally uncomfortable? Because I'm never going to amount to anything.
So in going to the growth mindset, what is the biggest barrier to adopt that? What do you think from people? Perhaps, I mean, you need to understand that, but you need to know that. But what are the components that need to be there, even if they don't know what a growth mindset is?
I think it comes back to your personal history. So I think we would agree that if somebody has a lot of trauma in their life, for me to tell you, hey, go and adopt a growth mindset, go and be positive, go on, you know, explore the world, and you're thinking, well, I can't even get out of my front door. Then to start with, you know, if you're in that sort of situation, you need some professional help along the way. If you don't have that situation in your life, then it is possible step by step to, one, record your journal. Is a fantastic way of starting. That
for me, it's a great way. I've been journaling for many years.
Yeah.
And that for me, it's a fantastic way to really push the boundaries of your own thinking, of your own limitations, of thoughts, and ask yourself questions. Talk to yourself.
Talk to yourself.
Don't let your neighbors listen to it, or somebody else. They might call someone to take you away. But
yeah, talking to yourself, writing to yourself is important. I believe that there's so many times when I've suggested to people, you know what? When I help people who, for instance, looking at weight loss as a big thing, they're saying, well, just write it down. Yeah. Just write it down. And the funny thing is, most times you don't write it down. And what I really do believe is what you're not aware of, you can't change. What you actually don't measure, you don't know whether you're going forward or you're going back. Because we rely on imperfect memories. We rely on memories that make it up as you go along. And that's been shown time and time again.
But even that self-awareness, which is a very important aspect, self-awareness, and then from self-awareness to self-reliance, and you might need some sort of a level of criticism in your life, right? Can you explain a little bit that, why criticism is important to develop a resilient mindset?
Okay, so for some people, criticism is a nasty word. Criticism is actually a four-letter word, if you want to put it that way. And I think that criticism actually is another word meaning feedback. But criticism is loaded. Feedback is a little kinder. And there are two levels of people in terms of how you deal with criticism. The first level is, I can't take anything critical of me. I can't take it.
That's triggering me, Johnson. I'm telling you right now.
I know you're on the second level. We'll come on to that later. But the first level is yeah, exactly. That triggers the stuff. I get mad. I don't want to hear it. I ignore it. All that sort of stuff. That to me is the first level of first realizing that that's where I am. Then saying, okay, if you can't take it at the moment, record it, capture it somewhere. And that's where it comes back to the journaling. So I can journal the fact that I hated it when so-and-so said to me, you know what, I don't like your hair. Okay? Then the second way to move on from that, I like what Jim Rohn used to say ages ago. He said, somebody says to you, oh, you look awful. And his reaction would be, just hold it out here, that statement, look at the person, say, that's interesting. Why did you say that? Tell me more. So you then become inquisitive as to what that statement means to that person. Why did they say? So you're trying to unpack something that's critical.
So in that way, you're saying we need to filter, interpret. Before we internalize, we have to okay. Let's filter that through.
Hold it out.
Is there any element of truth in it? What is it?
Or what is the element of truth?
What is the element of truth? And interpret that before we internalize, or even before we punch back.
Exactly.
And let rage come forth, and then.
So all the emotion does this and creates the barrier. So you might say, okay, yeah. But you look awful because that bit of green is sticking up in your head, whatever it is. So that's the only reason you're saying that. Whereas I hear that, you look awful, and I think, oh, is he seeing, that I didn't brush my teeth today? I did brush my teeth, by the way. But
good thing.
So it's filtering, like you say, or examining your filters as to what is the filter I'm using.
And it goes back to what we learn in philosophy, is that you have no control over outside circumstances and what people say to you, but you have control over how you react to it.
Exactly.
You have control over your mind, your thoughts, your words.
You have potential control
over what you say.
Yeah, over how you react.
Over how you react. So
what you say is the next step.
So if I'm angry or if something is upsetting me, I need to stop there and say, why am I getting upset with this?
Yes, that's one way. Why am I
Right.
getting upset? Or even you get past that. Well, I don't know why I'm getting upset. Maybe my father used to beat me over the head with those words, but I can't remember. But so it may or may not be relevant. But just say, I am upset. Okay. Then move past it. So the first thing is to recognize, accept it. If you know where it come from and you can put it away, that's fine. If you don't know, then you live with the fact that I know it upsets me. This is my trigger. But I can get past my trigger to learn a deeper truth. When you do that, you are then in a better place to be more resilient.
But then, going back to what we were talking earlier on, there isn't a cake recipe or how to.
No, there isn't a cake recipe, but this is
Wake 5 a.m., take a cold shower, you're gonna be okay.
No, that's not a right thing to do. Certainly not for me. I don't get up at 5 to do anything. But the idea of saying there's a process. So I can't tell you where you will end up in terms of your specific context, the way you are. It's all about maybe the wiring that you are, etc. So I can't tell you that you do A, you will get B. But what I can tell you is that if you look at the process of holding, recognizing the feeling that's coming up when somebody gives you some feedback, then you have the ability to analyze the feedback separately from the feeling and either accept it or not. Is it helpful or is it unhelpful?
But that can also be related not only to interpersonal situations, but also circumstances of your life.
For example?
Well, it could be that could be coming not from a relational fact, but for example, now that I don't have a plane to go back home.
Yeah.
Who do I get my anger? How do I run my frustration? Somebody decided that because of the India variant, I cannot go to Europe.
For now.
For now, but who do I run? That's not coming from that comes from a situation. How do you become resilient when there is so much happening? I think a lot of people probably going through the aspects of to take the test and don't take the test. The kids go to school and then 2 days later the kids go back to school, and Boris Johnson said one thing, and then the German government said something else, and then South America something else, and then how do you plan your life?
You can't plan it now. It's too late. But what would have happened if 5 years ago or 5 weeks ago or whatever it is, somewhere in your past, you had worked on your mindset?
Exactly right.
You'd worked on the fact that I get frustrated, I get angry, I get upset when X happens. Then you actually start to build a level of self-control on top of the awareness, because awareness is fine, but then you need to add a layer of self-control. Once the self-control comes in, then you have the ability to analyze, to think logically, to look for new ways of dealing with. So, you know what? They cancel my plane. Well, what are my options? What are your options? And then you can come up with 10 or 20 different options. Not all will be sensible, but at least you have a mindset that enables you to start to move past the initial upset. And so for some people it might be, okay, well, so they've cancelled my plane, you might end up crying for 5 days. Well, okay, it's not a good thing, but if you've previously worked on it, you might be upset for half a day and then start to look for solutions.
Or you go out and then you get a ice cream and you start stuffing yourself with ice cream or alcohol or smoking or whatever mechanisms that is out there that get you somehow distressed, or apparently the sensation of being distressed.
Yeah.
without addressing the causes. And that's what we learn in Stoicism, that that is something called amore fati, which is love for the circumstances and what's happening around you, and say whatever.
So let's just go back to the second level of criticism. So the second level of criticism is where, instead of you just giving it to me, I get to the point where I can ask for it.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't actually ask for feedback. Feedback might sound better, so we'll use the word feedback. So, can you give me some feedback on my last singing engagement? So that would be one way of saying, well, can you give me some feedback? Can you give me something that's helpful? And when you get to that point, you then have to start to filter, who do I ask for feedback from? And the more feedback you have, the more you can tune in more precisely. So when people talk about failure, they say, yeah, failure is just another point of correction. But you can only correct if you have the right coordinates. And the feedback or the criticism that you ask for enables you to know that.
How much fear comes across because you need a level of security sometimes to ask these type of questions, or being bold.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We don't like to ask those questions. Sometimes we don't know what we're going to hear back and how it's going to affect us.
Exactly. So that comes back to, how safe do you feel? How well do you know?
And who do you ask those questions?
Who do you ask those questions of? And I think that comes to me the next point of saying you can develop a mindset of asking if you get a group of people around you.
Mm-hmm.
I think supporting
group.
So that's where I think things like the groups or mastermind groups would become relevant. So a mastermind group, just to help you to understand, and I know you know what a mastermind group is, but for anybody who doesn't, a mastermind group is a group of people with certain parameters around them.
Mm-hmm.
The first parameter is that we are all different. You have to have a difference of temperament. I think it requires different sectors. It also requires enough self-confidence, self-awareness, self-efficacy, all this sort of stuff to withstand a level of somebody saying something openly and honestly as far as they're concerned. So it's not necessarily your friends, but it has to be a group of people who want to get together with one thing in common, that we are here to listen to what somebody else is saying, and with the attitude of the best for whatever that person is, or whoever that person is, whatever they're aiming for.
And it could be people at the same level where we are today, or a little bit higher, or it could be at different stages in life. You're gonna have to trust people.
Exactly. So a lot of it nowadays people talk about it in terms of, you say, is it a mentoring group you're talking about? Yeah, but mentoring in the old days used to be kind of like, well, here's the master and here's the guy at the bottom, and the master pours all that he knows into the guy who below. But that now has changed drastically. So it's now a mastermind group would be, you have your level of expertise in finance or marketing, and I have a level of expertise in things psychological or medical. And it's not so much that it's not better or worse, because that's old school kind of thinking. But it's that ability to bring a different mindset, a different way of looking at it, a different way of explaining things, because sometimes it's a matter of explanation rather than new ideas.
Yeah. Let me push a little bit further and ask the question about heroes.
Yeah.
Does having a hero help you to develop that mindset of resilience? Role models or heroes, whatever you want to call it.
So let me flip that question back for a second. Do you have any heroes?
Yes, I would say I have a few heroes.
Okay, name one.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
No, listen, I grew up with a lot of Marvel, so I can't help that, right?
No, if that's, then I excuse you just that.
No, we all have heroes. I think growing up, for example, in Brazil, one of my biggest hero of all times was Ayrton Senna. Ayrton Senna.
Yeah.
I used to miss everything just to watch Formula One. I was into Formula One big time, and I remember when he died, I cried the whole day. I think probably the whole of Brazil cried the whole day. He was my hero.
Yeah, and he was a great hero because Senna represented something to a nation.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem,
and to everybody in the sport, everybody in the sport.
The name.
If you know Lewis Hamilton now, and he says that was his hero too. So a lot of those guys today, looking back, he was a big hero.
Everybody needs heroes to start with. So you need somebody who's way in front that can help pull you in a direction. Fantastic, and that's important. The problem sometimes we have with hero worship, so to speak, is that we don't dig deep enough into their story, or we try and emulate everything exactly the way he did it. Mm-hmm. We've said this before. If you copy the exact thing that somebody did, so you can go and look at Senna's life and you can get his biography and you say, you know what, he did get up at 5 o'clock, he ate only fish, and then he ran 12 miles a day for 20 years, and you can do that, and thing is, you'll never be anywhere near what that guy achieved. So it's taking your hero and looking at the principles, looking at the cost he paid, for example, looking at the perseverance that he showed, looking at some of the obstacles that he overcome. And then that way, your heroes, you start to analyze their lives and try and apply some of the principles.
And it's that thing that, I mean, going back to the comics, every hero has a weakness. Every Superman has a kryptonite in his life.
Yep.
Something that brings you down, something that makes you weaker, something that makes you more human, something that makes you struggle. And through the struggle, you come out to the other side stronger.
Yep. Exactly.
Right. So, and that is the case of going back to the heroes of the real heroes of our lives here in the world, is that story of the 40, the 20, the 40, the 30 years overnight success. Right. Yeah. You don't know the 30 years, the 20 years, the 40 years it took.
Yep.
You just know that he's a success or she's a success. Yep. Therefore, you can be and you can do or whatever, and you don't know you have to trace the steps. Exactly. You don't know the steps that they took to be where they are, how many times they cried, how many times they almost came to give up, etc. But it goes back to the mind, in the mindset.
Thanks.
And never give up.
The perseverance. The keeping going.
The consistency, the perseverance, the questions that you ask. The back engineering, the journal, it's a process, the everyday process that probably you and I, we are in this journey for a while, and we know that we're far from arriving where we want to, but the destination is not as important as the journey that you are in.
Correct. And I think if you, like say, go back to the idea of Senna, if you looked into his life, you would see points of the low points, and you'd have seen points in which he'd have felt like, I just want to quit, I'm ready to give up, or this is too tough, etc., etc. And for every successful hero, and by definition all heroes are successful, you will find those points. And when you see that, you'll see that they overcome A, then they overcame B, then they overcame C. So that sequence of obstacles is important. Important for them and important for us. So it's a bit like you say there, yeah. So we're in the middle of this COVID pandemic. Okay. And you say, well, we actually don't know when the next one will happen. We suspect something else will happen. It may not be COVID. It might be something related to climate change. Whatever it is, there's something else on the horizon. And so the resilience piece is learning where your mind is, what is your attitudes towards challenge, okay? Because if your attitude towards challenge is yes, I hide from it, then you will never put yourself in the place where Mastermind Group, you got to be joking. I don't even have a friend to ask, one friend to ask this. Never mind a bunch of strangers who potentially will tear me to pieces. And that, see how that mindset, you open your mouth, your mind, what you're thinking starts to come out to your mind. These people are going to tear me apart, as opposed to these people are here.
And that's what we were talking earlier on in preparation to the episode. There's so much stuff that we're going to have to leave out.
Yeah,
it's that's one of the reasons we have Kathleen with us.
Yes.
And the whole expertise that she brings from temperament, how we are wired.
Yeah,
that is so important in terms of how we respond to stimulus in a different way because we're different. It might be the same thing, but you're going to respond in one way. And then also the piece on an environment, the mindset and the environment, your upbringing, the food you're given, where you come from, your culture, all that shapes who you are.
All that shapes it. And in the same way, the other person we've interviewed recently is Marcus. When he talks in terms of the mental models, now that's a fantastic tool of how to actually work through the actual practical pieces of learning to do these things. So I remember when he talked about inverting questions, he said to me, most times you go and you ask somebody, well, what legacy would you like to leave behind? A lot of people say, well, I don't know. And then if you flip it and you say, well, what legacy don't you want to leave behind? And what are the steps that you would take to not leave that behind? Then you start to, the wheels start to move. And so these sort of models are really important. And I think, be it a personality, temperament approach, or be it a more pragmatic, systematic approach, both are relevant in terms of building resilience. And
keep practicing, right? That's a great attitude to have.
Keep practicing.
You're never going to get there. We're going to be like 70, 80 years old. God willing, we will be there.
Yeah.
And we still don't know enough. We still have to write a journal. We still have to ask questions. We're still going to have to learn, be surrounded by people. There's another piece that I think it's fantastic. Two pieces that we're not going to put in today. One is a community and a mindset. Yeah. And the other one is having a resilient mindset because of those people around you, like your children.
Yes.
Every day, because I know the situation with my family and my mom and my children, and they are not with me, I have to build that resilience because they depend on it also. Correct. For that feedback.
Correct.
So,
exactly.
That's so really it's not only about you, it's that something that you gives out.
Yeah, exactly. And because you touched on it for a little while, you say, well, it's continually learning and continually learning. Somebody says, so what's the point of all of that if even if you live to be 100, you're still learning and you pegged it and all the rest of it. And so it seems pointless. But it comes back to what you just said about it is where you are in the spectrum of here's your mother or your parents, and here's your children. And whatever you've learned, potentially passes down to them for the positive. And whatever they are, it passes them to the positive.
No, that's amazing. Guys, it's incredible. This journey has been such a great realization for both of us and for our friends and those people coming with us. There's more coming. This is the resilience piece. We have more momentum talks coming. There's more people that we're going to be interviewing. And keep, like and subscribe, or send to someone, or bless someone else with this, the topics that we're covering here. And it's great to have you on board. Thank you very much.